I love that handbag. That's what they'll be saying, because you could be winning a luxury handbag from DC Lottery or up to $10,000 cash. Just head to your local DC Lottery retailer, ask for the scratcher that looks like a handbag, and boom, could be yours. DC Lottery, where lots of people win. Hey, you guys, welcome to Tuesday in the Mind of Frase, a Hey Frase podcast production. I'm your host, Sarah Fraser. Tuesday's show is all about interviews, experiences, and entrepreneurs. And today is my first experience. How many of you have heard of a shaman healer or a shaman healing ceremony? I've heard about it, but I have been so curious to actually go to one. And I ended up finding a man in Reston, Virginia. It all happened through his stepdaughter, Christy, who's a fan of the podcast. Christy, I love you. And Christy had said, you need to come see my stepfather, Eric Weinstein. And Eric is a shamanic healer. He helps people deal with their anxiety, past trauma, and so much more. He also does tapping ceremonies, but his shamanic healing ceremony is what you really need to try. So that's exactly what I did. Eric and I have been going back and forth for the past several weeks, and our first session, Eric had sent me an email about setting an intention for that session and asking Spirit to guide me on to the next step, whether it was to find clarity in my life or maybe it was also what should my next move be. And then Eric also suggested that I bring a snack. He said that after we get through the ceremony, lots of times people, it's been exhausting and tiring, and sometimes they need a snack. So I got his email. I made my mind very clear, and he'd asked me to come with just an open mind and an open spirit. So that's exactly what I did. Eric told me that when I came to his home, that he would have an altar built for me, and that altar would have various objects, that it would become very clear to me as we went on through the ceremony. He also told me that he wanted to know nothing about my background, that with his clients, he usually knows nothing ahead of time because he wants to truly read from Spirit your energy. I love all this stuff, so you guys, I was instantly in. I love this. I'm always about finding something new and interesting. So the first session I went to, Eric and I decided that we probably shouldn't record it because lots of times you don't know what reaction you're going to have. You don't know if you're going to be emotional. You don't know exactly what's going to happen. So I went to my first session and it was terrific. And lots of interesting things came up about me. Most of all, that I use sex to blow up relationships, which is kind of true because I have cheated on almost every partner I've had. So we'll be doing more exploring on that. But in the meantime, today is part one of the 3-part series, and we're going to take you through an actual ceremony that was recorded. I think you are going to love this. So here is session 1 with Eric Weinstein.
Ladies, as you know, a great outfit can totally define your look. And a beautiful designer handbag can take that outfit up a notch. So how would you like to win a luxury brand handbag to enhance your wardrobe? Well, play the new Handbag Scratcher from the DC Lottery. Not only can you win cash prizes of up to $10,000, but enter the second chance drawing and you have a chance to win one of 7 luxury brand handbags or cash prizes to help you pick out your own new bag. Play the Handbag Scratcher today, and you just might win that handbag you've had your eye on. Visit your local DC Lottery retailer and ask for the scratcher that looks like a handbag. Only from the DC Lottery, where lots of people win.
Eric, I'm very excited about today.
I am too. Thanks for coming.
So this is my second session, and today we're going to be going through a shamanic healing ceremony. And tell me a little bit for like a new client. This is obviously my second time coming in, so I know what to expect. But for a client first coming in, tell us what is going to happen.
I'm never sure what's going to happen. Basically, I'm going to put on a drum beat or a rattle, and I'm going to go into a trance state, and I'm going to ask Spirit or my spirit guides how to help you. And one of the things we always try to do when we're doing a healing session is come up with a good question for Spirit. Mm-hmm. Now, Spirit doesn't always answer the question we provide, but nonetheless, that's, I guess you'd say, a protocol. So you and I talked about this before, And what we've decided to do for your session today is to ask how we can help you with impulse control.
Which I love, because I was telling you yesterday when we were talking on the phone, impulse has always been a big issue for me. And I told you the story of I've never done drugs, not because I haven't wanted to, but because I've always been a person of excess. And I use the example with you of weight. You know, from the age of 12 years old until I was 28, I was always on a diet and gained and lost 150 pounds. And with food, I was either eating everything or nothing. You know, there was just never any moderation. There was never any control. And so 4 years ago, when I started mindful eating, I really began to unpack the impulse of all that. But it still shows up in other aspects of my life. You know, when I kind of got control of mindful eating, my drinking kind of came into moderation, but I always drank to excess. You know, there was never like a drink or two. You know, so I still find that in my career, it's all or nothing.
Right. Well, and what we're hoping will happen here is one of several things. I may be instructed to do some energy work on you. I might do what's called some soul retrieval work, which is based on the concept that often when we're young, a part of our personality leaves to preserve itself. I might do what's called some power animal or power object retrieval, which is based on the idea that that I'm going to say metaphorically or symbolically, an animal or an object will bring you something that you need. And go ahead.
Tell me some examples. Like when clients come in, what does your spirit animal bring you?
Well, it might take me to what's an obvious one? Well, let's go with something more interesting. Once I was a client was here, and the power animal that showed up happened to be a praying mantis, and it was not just a praying mantis that I saw in my mind's eye or through my spirit guide, but an actual praying mantis walking on the balcony outside on its back legs. I've also had, people shouldn't expect this, but I've also had a hawk actually land on the deck while I was doing a retrieval for a client, and the power animal was a hawk.
That's incredible. Oh my God, did you stop the session at that point? I would have been like, okay, oh Lord.
Yeah, I did. That does not happen every time, but it was extremely cool. Yeah, I had just told her power animal was a hawk, and all of a sudden, boom, there it was on the deck, peering in the window for a few seconds and then taking off.
Now, does everybody have a spirit animal?
Well, I think the answer is yes. I mean, whether someone has a spirit animal or a guide depends partially on their belief systems. I think what I see is something that relates to the client's cultural upbringing that makes sense to them. So, for example, working with a client's father recently, I saw a saint. And I know nothing about Catholicism, but I was given the very specific name of this saint and saw the image of the saint standing next to his father. And so when I asked the client, because his father was in a coma at the time, if it made sense that this, I'm going to say St. Mark just to preserve his anonymity, but that, St. Mark would show up, he knew right away what it was about. And he said, that was my father's patron saint. Wow. So what shows up and whether people have that or not, it depends partially on how they see God or spirit or the universe or whatever one wants to call a greater power.
Okay. So what are the first steps we're going to take today before we get into the actual ceremony?
Well, if you'd like, I will take you through the usual set of things that I take a client through.
Yes.
I'll do that very briefly, though, because normally that's about a 15-minute conversation.
Okay.
So what I'm going to ask you to do is just sit back.
Okay.
And you don't have to do it just yet.
Okay.
And basically be energetically open to whatever happens. So when clients are meditators, I often ask them to go into a meditative state. And I'm going to put some music on. Well, we'll call it music, but it's really just drumming or rattling. Okay. And for the scientists out there, I should mention that the drumming and rattling is at roughly 200 beats per minute, which we now know actually takes the brain into a certain wave state. I'm not sure, it might be theta or delta. Okay. And that helps me go into trance, and often clients go into trance at the same time. And clients sometimes experience old memories coming up, or sometimes they see things themselves. Sometimes they see colors moving, which I believe just represents energy moving in their body. And that's all kind of a bonus as far as I'm concerned, because what I'm going to do, as we talked about before, is use the question to ask my spirit guide how to help you.
Okay.
And it could be that we'll talk through through a little bit of the process, but normally I just kind of do my thing, and within 10 or 15 minutes we turn the music off, and I will physically blow energy into your body.
Okay.
And ask you to just sit with the energy for, typically it's a couple of minutes before clients feel the energy flow start to drop off.
Okay.
Now, I have some clients who don't feel anything, and I have some clients who are happy to sit there for 10 or 15 minutes or half an hour, which we usually don't have time to do. But at any rate, if you don't respond to me by taking the eye mask off, which tells me that you have felt the energy begin to drop off, okay, then at some point I'll just gently bring you back out of, the resting state that you're in. At that point, I'll tell you what I saw and what I was told, because I'm sometimes given advice for clients.
Okay.
And you'll be able to ask questions. And after the whole thing is over, as you know, I'll send you notes. And that way you don't have to try too hard to remember anything.
Oh, good. Okay, because the first time I was here, it was a lot. It was hard to remember. It was like tons of energy moving. My body felt sideways. I was having all these visions. So it's a lot to recall.
Right, and some people are sensitive to things, as you obviously were talking about your body feeling sideways and how you had to almost forcefully bring it back into an upright position. Yeah, and so those reactions vary a lot. Again, I would say most people feel something significant. Some people have wilder times, and some people have much, much more boring times.
I don't know if there's anything boring about it, but okay, great. Well, whenever we're ready.
Okay.
Yes.
So I'm going to put a drum beat on.
Okay, and then I'm going to put on, I have an eye mask that Eric gave me, so I'm putting that on, and I do meditate a couple times a week, so I'm going to try and get into a meditative state. After Eric sets up what we're going to do, and we do the initial consultation, then Eric starts playing a drum beat and uses a sound shaker to bring energy into the room. We started the ceremony, but almost immediately, Eric started getting a reading about me.
Let me ask you a question. Mm-hmm. I feel, and I'm kind of sensing, I'm going to call them energetic chords of expectation, probably from your family, maybe feels more maternal, like your mother's side of the family.
Okay.
And it feels like a connection that you don't really need to have. And I wonder if that makes any sense to you.
Well, I think there's a lot of expectation I put on myself.
Okay.
And I would have thought it came more from like my dad, and more from, I think, being the oldest, and I have a younger brother, and I think, as I've shared, my dad passing away, and he was always a person that had big dreams, but never, he was actually just starting to kind of fulfill those when he got sick. So I think I feel a sense of a little bit of carrying that on, of like trying to live my life without fear, because he had a lot of fear. So I break that pattern, so I think I definitely carry that for sure.
And maybe that is even the flip side of the impulse control. When you talk about trying to break his pattern of fear, maybe some of what you're doing is trying to do the opposite of that, trying to be fearless. Maybe that's where some of your impulse is coming from. Does that?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
I could see that for sure. Yeah, I definitely have a lot of self-imposed, I guess, expectations.
Okay.
For sure.
So how do you feel about, this is a connection to your father, but it's not necessarily a healthy connection if your actions are partially based on trying to overcome something that he had or that you fear that you got from him. In other words, anytime you're operating out of reaction instead of operating from authenticity,
okay,
I would say that's something that we want to change.
Okay, yeah, absolutely.
So how do you feel about symbolically cutting those cords?
I feel like, yes, there's like a little pit in my stomach, a little bit like, the hard part is that it feels like giving up, you know what I mean? And maybe that's the all or nothing thing. So I want to try. I just feel like my gut's like, oh, well, if I let go of that, am I letting go of all of my ambition? If that makes any sense.
It does. And I don't think you are. The ambition that you have from within yourself is yours.
Okay.
But the ambition where you're trying to fulfill something that your father didn't accomplish is his.
Okay, got it.
So I'd like you, let me get something for you to cut those cords.
Okay.
Because this is not just about what I see or I think is right for you.
Mm-hmm.
It's about what you know is right for you.
Okay.
I'll be right back.
Eric gave me a jagged edge stone, and he told me to cut the cord. So in my mind, that cord looked like almost a tug of war between two sides pulling at one another. I took the sharp, jagged rock and hacked away at the rope, eventually getting through, and finally it's snapping back very quickly. The ceremony went on for several minutes after that, until we started to wind down. Well, it's interesting because this session, I felt much more relaxed in my body, much calmer. This time I felt more tingling energy through my neck, through my shoulders. And, oh my gosh, I don't even know if you touched the top of my head or what, but this incredible energy went through my body. You could so feel it, so warm. I just felt much calmer this time than our first session. I think probably I was nervous. I didn't know what my body would react to, but I loved cutting that cord. That was a really nice feeling. And actually, after I cut that, I felt just a lot, almost like a weight off my shoulders, like a much more set back and kind of relaxed. And this time I felt very neutral to almost a white color. So last time it was actually felt very dark. I don't know why, but this time very white and much more easy to just focus on the drum beat and my breath than last time my mind was very busy. So those are sort of the first things that come to mind. I can't even really think of an image that came up. It didn't seem like there was a lot of images. It was much easier to just relax.
Okay.
And the only thing I really saw was that cord cutting and almost like snapping back. So those were some, moments.
Okay. So it's funny that you mentioned white, because even the last time you were here, I kept getting the image of a white block of concrete, kind of like some people use as an anchor for a boat when they don't want to have a real boat anchor. But that really seemed like, I'm going to say, kind of a crummy thing to bring you as a gift. So I kept asking for something else, and especially because this time we were focused on this very specific question about impulse control. So when I first started the journey, I saw that block of white again, and I said, look, I'm not giving her an anchor.
A crappy anchor.
And so I was brought to an egret.
Oh, okay.
And if you think about it, an egret is a pretty obvious symbol of patience. You don't see them flopping around in the water, going here and there. They're very deliberate in their motions. They're very patient, or at least that would be the virtue we would ascribe to them. They're probably not thinking about patience. And then, of course, when they see a fish, they strike. So after I blew this into you, and this was a pretty easy process because it was very specific.
Okay.
I think in our last session I brought you 2 or 3 different things.
Yeah.
So I went up and I got the book that I like to use, which is called Animal Spirit Guides by Stephen Farmer.
Ooh, okay.
And the one thing I always caution clients about is that what I like about Farmer's books is that he takes a lot of the specific cultural meanings out and kind of gives you a generic read of what the meaning of an animal is. Now, his book always says if egret shows up, it means, and there are several things in there. If call on egret when, and there are several things in there. And then if egret is your power animal, you are. Now, the problem with this is when I'm bringing a power animal for a client, they often look at this and say, well, this isn't me at all. And the reason is that I'm retrieving something for them that they need.
Got it.
So I'll give you one example. You'll probably start laughing. If egret is your power animal, you're a shy, gentle person.
Totally. What? Okay. Yes, I'm laughing.
So the gentle part, could be, but shy, you're not. And so what this is bringing you, perhaps, is, among other things, the comfort to be other than who you are. Other than who you have been.
Okay, I like that.
Now, the very first thing it says, if egret shows up, it means patience, patience, patience.
Yes, I need that.
Yes. So you can see why this particular animal came through for you.
Oh, yeah.
And earlier on, when you asked if everybody has a power animal, I guess I would say that if you were talking to an indigenous practitioner, they would say we all have them, but we're not connected to them. And that's kind of what I believe. And what is really fascinating, though, is that sometimes, like yesterday, I had a young woman as a new client, and without knowing really anything about her, I journeyed for her on the question of how we could best help her heal. And I brought back a sea turtle. And when I told her that, she was stunned because that's her favorite animal, and she has a collection of sea turtles. So she knew what her power animal was on a subconscious level.
Got it.
But it wasn't until I brought it to her here that she realized it had some meaning to it. It wasn't just something cute that she liked.
Wow. Okay, so the egret could be mine. I like that.
Yes. Well, certainly one.
Oh, I love that. Oh, I can't wait to read more about it. I'm taking a picture of that because I want to read all about it.
Oh, yeah, sure.
What else came up in this journey? Did you have other...
The only other thing was...
Remember those maternal cords that I caught with the jagged stone? They had meaning too. And I think I understand a little bit more about what Eric is trying to tell me. That we will reveal on part 2. In the meantime, Eric is taking on new clients, and I highly suggest trying it. Come with an open mind. You never know what you'll experience. If you'd like to book an appointment or read more about Eric, go to hollowreedhealing.com. That's HOLLOWREED healing.com. Also, I would love for you to share this podcast with a friend. Please pass it on. Tell people about the Hey Frase podcast experience. You guys are amazing, and I love being on this incredible journey with you. And once you share the podcast, take a minute, head to iTunes, and leave me a review. Just hit 5 stars and tell me what you liked. More information always up on my website, heyfrase.com. We'll see you guys next week.